Anybody rejoicing right here? Cool. It's good. Can you do that? I'm used to it. I'm
Right. Evening.
Good evening.
Hop on the teams and then I will, we can begin.
Yes,
So we are live. Is that correct?
yes. Mike, we're live.
Okay. So, hello, everyone. Good evening. Good evening to those that are present in the PMSA, and then to all of us, to all of those that are online watching via Teams or YouTube. Give me, if you could give me 1 second to get situated. And I'll hop on the Teams site or the Teams meeting, and then I will share my screen and then we can begin. While I'm setting up, I believe we have some members of the community in the building. If anyone has any citizens' comments, now would be the time to approach the podium and share your thoughts.
Hi, good evening. How are you today?
Good, how are you?
Oh, I'm okay, thank you. I came here this evening to find out as far as the missing paychecks for the June 16th. Oh, I got to tell you my name. Yeah. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, it is. My name is Miss Garcia. I work at Proviso West as a secretary. And this is, I think, my third time coming here. I'm trying to get information as far as you all thought process, if we're getting our missing paychecks or not.
Okay.
So, people are telling me that we shouldn't get them. I had a meeting with someone in the business office. I was confused after they gave us the check on the 23rd. It was supposed to have been from the 11th of June to the 30th. And so when I got my paycheck, I got a paycheck for 2 weeks, not 3 weeks. So I was kind of confused. Was it for the whole 3 weeks? Because that's what it said when you go to that Orca or something as far as the history of your paycheck.
Mhm.
They said you're going to get paid from the 11th to the 30th. And that wasn't the case. I only got paid for 2 weeks. So what happened to the third week from the 30th? I don't understand. I don't understand. I didn't understand what when I talked to the lady. She tried to explain to me the process of the 26 weeks. I was there for a while, and then she said something about I said, you didn't explain the 16th pay period. I said, we work those days, so we should get paid those days. So she told me that they had went up to the management to present the issue. And when they brought it to that person, the person said, well, don't pay them. So I was really confused. How are you going to tell them not to pay when we work those days? In September, we're supposed to get 3 pay periods again. Are they going to do the same thing they did in June 16th and September? I hope not, because I work. I don't sit down just twiddling my thumbs. I come in and I work. And an honest day's work, an honest day's pay. And I have not been receiving those. So I'm trying to find out what is the school board position on that. Are we going to get paid, or are we going to get paid in September for those 3 weeks? I mean, for those 3 pay periods? Could you explain, please?
Yes, very good questions. And I believe that you said last year you're missing.
Yeah, I went, and I got the calendar for the school year, for Proviso school year. I counted each of those years. You were supposed to get paid 26. I counted 25. Mr. Alexander stated that he guaranteed that we get paid. That's not the case. You go back, you count the calendar years
Mhm.
and the pay period. It counted up to 25, not 26.
Right.
I went all the way back to 2019. So I'm saying, well, let me go back to 2018. But when I tried to go back to 2018, I wasn't able to. But I do know from the 2019 all the way up,
Mhm.
it wasn't 26, it was 25.
Okay. And yes, not to get ahead of myself, that is on the agenda, is the payroll questions. We have
Okay,
right here.
okay,
And I would like to do an in-depth analysis of, the schedule
mm-hmm,
and then try to match up what you have versus
Mhm.
what the business office has in terms of, the pay stubs and see where the discrepancy maybe.
you can look at the discrepancy. So say when you go to, uh, the payroll history, they say that for this day, it covers, okay, let's get example. For June 23rd, no, June 16th, it said it covered, let me get my notes, I'm sorry.
Okay. We wait for the notes. I believe we have the agenda up online. Is everyone able to see my screen share?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So far, on June 2nd, everything was fine. June 2nd pay period covered from the 7th to the 20th. That was okay. Now the discrepancy comes in with the June 16th. The June 16th was supposed to cover from the 21st to May 21st to June 3rd. Now, when you look at it, it didn't seem like it was correct because they were jumping all over the place. Hold on. June 16th. I'm sorry.
Well, you got that information. Mr. Moody, do we have a calendar, a payment calendar posted or readily available where we should, on this date, you're gonna get paid, or is it every 2 weeks?
The payment calendar is on the website.
Okay, I will take a look at that.
Mr. Campo, if I could
I can pull it up
interject,
on my computer if you want me to.
So let's,
Yeah, 'cause it's no, the dates that they gave, it was a lot of discrepancy. It seemed as though that I was trying to make sense out of confusion. I tried to wrap my head around what the dates that they gave me,
mhm.
and when I looked at the calendar, it didn't make sense. Okay, so they said that they were going to give us on the 30th. They moved the check up to the 23rd. Now that was supposed to have covered one pay period, but then they added an additional week. That was from, hold on, that was from the 11th. Hold on, that was from the 21st. It's from the 11th or the 30th. I'm not sure. I gotta. I'm kind of nervous now, but I know that they were supposed to cover two pay periods, and then on that last pay period, I mean that last week was June 30th. It was supposed to cover included, but it wasn't included. It was only those first 2 weeks that was included for the pay, but not the third. But it said that the third was going to be included. It was not. So I just got a regular paycheck, not additional week.
Okay,
So
so it sounds like we need to do, some sort of matching, right, with what is published and then against pay
mhm,
stubs to see
mhm.
where the
Right.
discrepancy may be.
Well, maybe you can make some sense out of stuff that's nonsense. That's nonsense.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
The other citizens' comments, either in the building or online. Someone? Okay. All right, well, so, no additional comments, we will proceed. So the first item on our agenda is the updated budget. So I understand that, Mr. Moody, the updated versions on the site, on the school site.
Yes, sir. The latest version is on, the district's website.
Could I also get a copy? Would that be Mr. Canine, Dr. Canine, or would you be able to send me an updated version? Because the version I have is from mid-July. You sent me one way back.
When's the last time you took a look at the website? Recently?
Maybe 2 board meetings ago.
Oh, no. There's, actually the state form, we put the preliminary budget in the state format, and it is on the website. So you get the sort of Excel version and you get the state format version both of them on the website.
Okay. Then what I'd like to do is, I sent an email back on July 14th. Do you recall that email where I had my initial thoughts? Could we go through those thoughts? Let me pull it up. Hold on one second while I find. I stopped sharing for just 1 second. Okay, I will resume sharing. We'll walk through this. I'd like to see if these were addressed. So again, this is based on the file that I received on the 13th. Formatting, there's some misspellings in terms of the account descriptions. So like in this example, educational, and then, you know, here missing the A for educational. There's other misspellings for like supplies, there's missing a P, etc. So if we could get that fixed, and then the mixture of upper and lowercase descriptions, if we could pick one. Ideally, my preference would be uppercase, but if we could stick to one, that way it's easier to navigate through. Next thing is, in this file, again, let me pull up the file. Show my actual window. Apologies. There were some tabs that I had questions on. And they were related to basically the buildings themselves. So district, east, west, and PMSA. Could you elaborate as to what those are? The description simply says the building name.
So last year, Mr. Lewis was trying to transition the district for a format that was more consistent with other districts. So one of the elements that we have in our account stream is a program code. And most other districts don't have that. And so this was part of his effort to sort of transition us away from the program code. So as you look at this, if you look in column H, you see a string of zeros, 2 strings of zeros to sort of finish out the account. Proviso historically uses that next to the last group of digits for program number. So Mr. Lewis, in trying to transition us away from that, it's almost as though, I mean, this is really kind of getting deep in the weeds, but he created a second group of accounts without the program code. And so what I would, in trying to understand the budget, one of the things we're doing this year is we're going back to the program codes because the program codes are useful, in my opinion. They're useful here. And we need them. So when you don't have the program codes, it is difficult to tell exactly what that's for, other than it's for a building.
So you're saying that this could be facilities or utilities, or is this like a catch-all for the building?
Hello?
Not complete, because the other digits in the account screen help to describe what this is for.
Okay,
So it's not like it's just a total catch-all. It is restricted, but it is broader than how we normally have operated in the past.
I see. So it could be like a vendor code that service west, or a vendor code that service like a consultant that worked at west would fall under this.
The things he was doing here.
I think this is more.
It's broader than that.
Can I get on? See, this is being really specific.
It's just in general.
This money should go to west. This money should go to east. And
I would really have to
investigate the individual accounts. I think the thing that I could tell.
It's too broad, it's too generic, and you're going away from that.
Okay.
You're not doing that anymore.
Can you let me on?
The program code, and I think it'll make sense to you what we're doing.
Okay, yes, I'd like to see that. Now, with the newer version on the website, has anything changed with respect to these?
Yeah, there are program codes in the version on the website. That makes me very.
Leonard,
Okay, because
can
I
you get
see
me on?
$2 million allocated to West. So I'd like to know, if more specifically what is, not just a building, but like what.
Right, you want to see the granular.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah. So
okay,
yes,
so
that's
that's the first one. Let's take a look at,
Can you
the
hear me
next
get
bullet.
on?
So other purchase services was at 2.6 million.
yeah, no, I can't hear it.
And the way I see it is,
Hang on a second, this is Mr. Kaneen, I think he wants to join.
Sure.
There you in.
You tell me if you can hear me.
No, that's not coming.
Yeah, actually, I see you on the screen, you get your hand raised, but I can't hear you.
If you turn it.
Thanks.
Mr. Bennett, we've got guests we've got
Understood.
other
I'm on the
speakers.
phone with Michael right now. He's giving me that information.
Okay, we're working through some technical challenges here. I see you on the screen, but,
do we move on to item number
Yeah,
2 as we get,
Everybody's going through the speaker.
we can,
okay.
we can.
So then we will table item 1 until we get Dr. Kaneen online. So the next one is a piece
So
budget
nobody can hear?
and the proposed payment plan.
Oh,
David, they can't hear you.
I understand. Yes, ma'am. I just saw the whole thing.
And unmute myself here, but I don't know.
That's gonna act, yeah, that's gonna cause feedback. Michael, you can hear me through Teams? I got it. Okay. Yeah.
I am muted. on the computer.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, there you
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great.
Anyone hear me online?
Yeah, I'm hearing you fine.
All right, so let's go back to item number 1 and resume our line of questioning.
Okay,
if I was trying to talk on a couple of issues, and if you would allow me, uh, I could address that first issue and hopefully get some resolution to that. The
Which issue are we talking about? The buildings?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. There are two ways that school districts pay for any of salaries. One is the 15th and 30th. So you get a check on the 15th and you get a check on the 30th. You get 24 checks, there's 12 months, and everybody gets the check at the same time. The other way is to give a check every 2 weeks. That is 26 paychecks for a 14-day period. And if you multiply that out, that comes to 364. However, there's 365 days in a year. And with leap year, there's 366. This is a problem that any district that pays by the 2 weeks rather than twice a month finds themselves when instead of 52 Fridays in a year, you get 53. And that 53rd Friday creates a problem. And what happens is the accumulations of the extra day and the 53rd Friday causes problems on the pay for somebody. For example, if your last paycheck is the 16th and there is a pay period on the 30th, what do? I can sit and put together a report for you so that you could see how that has affected Proviso. It is not unusual for Proviso. Every district that has this pay cycle that goes 26 rather than the twice a month has this problem. And it is extremely confusing.
Okay, yes, if you could provide a report, that would be beneficial.
I will be able to get that to you. Mr. Moody and I can work on it and get it to you. And anyone who has any confusion on this.
Okay. All right, yes,
Okay.
yeah, we'll work on it. We'll work on it in the coming weeks so that we can get it all sorted out.
Yes, and I want to make sure that it is clear and concise enough, but I think you understand the generic problem of it, that we have a problem that creates a lot of confusion for our employees, not just ours, but all employees that are faced with this problem.
Got it. So
Good.
To clarify, Proviso has two, the bi-weekly pay period is not the 15th
Yes.
and 30th. Okay.
Yes, exactly. No,
Okay.
we don't have that. We have the bi-weekly, not the 15th and 30th.
Yes.
Yes, sorry, that's what you meant. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so then I look forward to the report so that we can get this sorted out with Ms. Garcia.
Yes, I had heard her at another board meeting, and we can definitely show her and check to make sure that she is being paid correctly.
Okay. Okay.
Now,
Let us proceed then with the review of the budget.
yes, Mr. Moody, can you put up our latest budget that you received
Well, actually,
yesterday?
before we do that, could we go through these comments and then?
If you give me a second, and then I'll go back to your comments.
Okay.
Okay, I wanted to share with you what essentially, and Leonard, are you able to put that on? Just for a second. I'm not gonna go in depth on
I'm
it.
gonna try and make that happen, Jay, hang on. I don't know if I have sharing rights here, let's see.
What I wanted to do, Campos, is to share with you the state budget form that's online. What we did share with you is kind of all the worksheets. And when I do worksheets, I'm not really concerned with the spelling, and I should be, because it basically only goes to you and a few people in administration. This final form is the one that the public will see. The final form is the one that we produce for the public review. So you were correct in saying there's some mess on some of the descriptions, and we'll take care of it. But I wanted you to see what the public is going to see. And if Mr. Moody can.
There it is. The tech works.
Good.
Oh, that's right.
Are you able to see it, Jay?
I'm
Yeah,
trying
well,
to.
that's it.
We see it. It's the state.
Okay. This is the official state form. This is the one that we will put on, that I think is on the website now, Leonard?
Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted you to feel comfortable that what we do is we use the official state form and not, our spreadsheets. What we wanted to do, though, is to show you how we get some of these numbers that are together with the state form. Am I echoing or not?
No, you're good.
Okay, good. Okay, if you look at this, you see, and would you just click on the estimated expenditures? Down at the bottom. If you see those aren't disaggregated by buildings, they are large numbers like the salaries on 5C, where you see 18 million. You don't have the back out of those numbers, and that's what we tried to do with those spreadsheets. What we also wanted to give the public, if you could give the 5-year plan. This is the one, and I think you suggested that this is a good practice to go back those fiscal years and then to project out for those future years. And if you just could go on further. Go to L, M, and keep going over. Okay, on column N, you will see the gain and loss over the 4-year period, and the percentage is in O on, for example, we went to 5% in actual revenues from local sources. The state went down, and that was mainly because we had to allocate money into the operation fund. And with ESSER, you will see that that was 17%. And we can look at that because of the ESSER money that came in. That won't be something that will continue. But you can see that over a 4-year prior period, we gained $6 million, which is about 2% per year increase. Same thing goes with expenses. Each one of those, you will see the pluses and minuses. If you look at column 14, you're going to see an increase in the benefits. And if you look at line G14, G14, from our talk on Thursday, you'll see that 3 million that we talked about, and you will see we're projecting that 11 million too that we had in our form that you adopted Thursday. So the public will see go to the cover sheet again. And that's the official state form. But we wanted to give you all the backup information. And to be honest, I think we gave sheets that you shouldn't look at because they're redundant. And I can walk you through, when you have some time, the actual line items that we aggregate to get to the state form. So now I'll give it back to you. I just wanted to clarify.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it, and I will later this evening I will download it and look at it more thoroughly. But
we can send it back to you again with a more cleaned up sheet, and I'd be more than happy to spend a little time with you and show you how we assembled this budget.
Okay, sounds fair.
Okay.
Zoom sharing. Okay, so last where I left off was other purchase services. Now, this may have changed in the latest version of the budget, but I have it at 2.6 million, and I feel that it's a catch-all. Is that still the same? Is that still the case that we have other purchase services at 2.6 million?
Well, the term other purchase services, because that is a standard terminology within the state's accounting structure. So that's not something we created.
Mm-hmm.
That's a standard terminology. And in terms of it being a catch-all, what you're seeing, it's an accumulation of different departments purchasing items. So the state likes to categorize our expenditures based on services. The state likes to differentiate between goods versus services. And so that category, other purchase services, it is somewhat of a catch-all, but it's not a catch-all that we created. It's a catch-all that the state created, because they know that there are certain things that the state sees that are consistent from school district to school district. And so they'll say, for instance, consultants. Mm-hmm. So yeah, every district has some consultants. So that's a category. professional development. In terms of services, any consultants, professional development, professionals, outside professionals that you use, that's one of the state sort of recognized categories. And then you have supply and various categories of supply. And then you have stuff that is an other, not because it's something strange, only because it's not something the state is tracking specifically. The things that the state is tracking specifically, they give it a name, everybody uses that. But then everything else goes into other purchase services. So what we know is it's a service, but it's an accumulation of services purchased by the curriculum department, services purchased by the English department, services purchased by the athletics department. It's services purchased by a lot of different departments. And we summarize that in order to fit into the state format. Whereas professional development, there's a category for that. You put all the PD in the PD category. But then there's everything else. And we just lump that in the other services because that's the direction the state has given us.
I see, okay.
So yeah, there's a standard format. In fact, I think it would be helpful for us to share the state's accounting format with you.
Mr. Moody, if you could just go back to our state form.
Well, before we take over this sharing session, so I filtered the bill list on other purchase services, and I'm seeing a variety of, like you said, consultants, barrier breakers, but like, let's take barrier breakers, for example, because I saw them in separate categories. So I'm just trying to. You see, there are other purchase services, there are advertising and communications. So is it vendor specific or is it?
So I think what you might be seeing there is when you see it being paid out of, number one, it's a fairly new service with us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in the beginning, we weren't sure exactly where we wanted to account for it. So you'll have different people entering requisitions. And so part of it is a function of who's using that service. So if the superintendent's office is using it, it might get categorized into the superintendent's account. If the communications department is using it, it'll show up in their account. So it's just a function of just how who's using it and what department it's being charged to. And in some cases, it's always the same department using the same people. In other cases, it's multiple departments using someone. And so you'll see different accounts being used for the same vendor.
Okay. Okay. Moving on then. Let's see, we have 3.4 million dedicated to all sorts of supplies. And this is where I brought up earlier that there was a variety of spellings. Here we have educational supplies and then supplies here, supplies here, and then general supplies. How do we differentiate all of these?
Very similar to my earlier description. There are certain supplies that the state identifies and say, "Oh yeah, all school districts use these things." So we're gonna name them. But then there's certain supplies that are just kind of miscellaneous. You know, we need markers, we need rubber bands, we need paper clips. You just throw that in supplies, sort of general supply. And again, this is an accumulation of different departments purchasing supplies.
And who's our supplier for, like you said, markers and paper clips, etc.?
Multiple people. Sometimes it's Staples, sometimes it's Amazon. Other times it's a local brick and mortar outfit. It depends on different departments may use different sources. Now we are members of 3 or 4 different co-ops. And so with those co-ops, they have vetted the pricing with the state of Illinois. And so we can access those co-ops because we know that pricing is already been verified to be low. And so we try to steer people toward the co-ops. But again, it depends on the situation. Sometimes they're in an emergency. They're like, oh, we need something right away. You're just gonna go to whatever the local
Walmart,
supply, right, Walmart, wherever, local supply store and get it. Or it's like, hey, we thought this out, we know we're gonna need pins for the whole year. Let's go to Staples and let's get a skid of pins. So it just depends on the situation.
So it sounds like Staples is our preferred supplier of.
Depends on sometimes there's stuff you can only get from Amazon. And I know even as an individual, sometimes it's stuff that you can't readily find it anywhere else. Amazon has it and you get it from Amazon. So there's so many different stories as to, why it would go one way or the other.
Okay, so then what constitutes general supplies? Because that is the bulk.
Paper, pens, it could be a variety of things.
Okay. Okay, so then if I were to dive into the general supplies, we may see Staples, Amazon purchases. Okay.
Or Walmart or Blick. You buy a lot from Blick.
Okay.
They have artistic type supplies. And not being an educator, my imagination isn't great up to, but they use all sorts of different things.
Got it. Okay. Moving on. Yes. If I could go through this portion, and then we'll circle back. Here I see conferences. If we could, again, make that one account, that would be, or one description. This quick one. The next thing, athletics department and the budget, because I saw that $60,000 was allocated to it in the summary here. Athletics, 60K. Is that the case?
That is not complete.
Do we have the budget for athletics?
Yes, and I wanted to share this with you. I really wanted to share the process, so to speak. So, can I share my screen?
Yes.
For a few moments? Okay. All right. So, back in May, you're seeing this. So back in May, I met with Calvin Davis, the head of athletics, and we have a budget meeting. And so these are the files that I use to sort of support our conversation. Is I take last year's spending in athletics, and the way this is structured, you have the document that has the line by line. Okay. So if you look at column M, that's 0036, that is the program code for athletics. And so I sort the accounts by that program code. And so that's how I've come up with this list. Now, going back to the current year, as of the time when we had our conversation with Chuck, it looks like it was May 2nd, we had budgeted $514,000 for athletics. Year-to-date transactions you can see here, encumbrances you can see here. And so our conversation is, Mr. Davis, what does athletics need next year? And so that's our opportunity to discuss, hey, what do we need? We need helmets, we need shoulder pads, we need uniforms. And if you look at the accounts, go to the I believe the account, to give you an idea. You know, all our account descriptions are basically standard state format. And so it starts with professional and technical services and such. I believe these were trainers that we're using at the different events. But I can see from the account codes here that these are at various schools. O2 being East, O3 being West, O4 being PMSA. So this is our athletic activity across the district. And so we pull it together, we summarize it, and we talk through it. And so our conversation is basically, what do we need to do? So for instance, we had a conversation around other purchase. You want to know what's other purchase services? So as I'm having this conversation with Mr. Davis, you know, he's explaining to me that he's essentially explaining to me what they're buying in the different categories. I'm not sure why I can't move advance the program. That let me scroll in. But he's saying either trainers, shoes, gear, various, etc. It's kind of cut off there at the end. But because it's one of the major expenses, you know, we want to talk through what's going through this account. But it gives you a little bit of a flavor for what's going through this account. And yeah.
Was it freeze paintings
Yeah, it's
or a scroll line? One of the two.
I'm not sure what's going on. Oh, there you go. Okay, now we're good. And then, for instance, uniform, it's uniform. So typically the activity of this function gets described in terms of the state descriptions, which we're using here. And we talk through, what do you need for next year? And so in talking to Mr. Davis, at that time, we felt that we had what we needed last year in terms of funding. And that going forward next year, that if we had similar funding, that we'd be in good shape. And so it's not 60,000. I think it's more like
Is it 300?
518,000.
Okay, so we have roughly $500,000 for all of our athletics programs. How is that divvied up amongst the individual programs, right? Like football may get 10% of it, or
It's
basketball may get
not done based on a percentage basis. I talked to Mr. Davis, and he says, you know, we just bought uniforms for football last year, so I don't think we need uniforms for football, but soccer uniforms are kind of old. I think we need to replace soccer uniforms. And so it's more of that kind of conversation. It's not a percentage, this percentage that.
Because at a previous board meeting, the football trainer, the coaches were saying that they didn't have equipment. So how do we, how do we account for that, knowing that we have $500,000? Like,
Well, how we account for it is, from my end, I don't spend the money. A requisition comes in and we fund the requisition. So if we get a requisition from the coach saying we need football equipment, if it's in the budget, we pay it.
okay.
So
The coaches know the process, the procedure for filling out a requisition?
they do. But even if the coach doesn't know, the principal knows. And typically we try to work through the principal. So ideally, the coach would go to the principal and say, hey, you know, I think I need $100,000 to run the football program. And the principal, being familiar, you know, on a granular level with what's going on in the program, says, you know what, I agree, that makes sense. And then the principal would bring it to us and say, hey, I support this. And we'll say, great, let's see the superintendent supports it. And if everybody supports it, it gets funded. and they get the funds they need to run that program. So even if they individually don't know how to enter a requisition, the principal and the community are able to support them in that.
So last year, we've spent roughly $514,000 for athletics, or is that what was allocated?
This was through May 2nd.
May 2nd, okay. That is what is
That was
allocated.
more than that. I mean, I'm sure we spent a little more than that because I don't think the camps are not in here. Summer camps are not in here yet.
Okay.
So I'm sure we spent more than this, but as of May 2nd, that's where we were.
Okay. Understand where the break is in the process of, where we have coaches telling us that they don't have equipment, but yet there's.
I'm just
No.
gonna say this, we get a lot of, sometimes we haven't been the best at planning ahead. And so a lot of emergencies show up sort of at my desk and it's sort of like, oh wow, we need this yesterday. And, there's been no conversation around it in our budget meeting, no one saying, hey, this is something we need. It's just that in the course of running a program and things happen, surprises happen. And they're in the middle of running a program like, oh my goodness, we want to take this trip downstate. Or, oh my goodness, we, had some equipment that broke. We need more money. And so if it's an emergency or something that people maybe should have planned for and didn't. And I think people have become accustomed to showing up at the last minute and just, because we're going to make sure the kids are taken care of. So you show up with an emergency and it's going to affect children, and you're going to jump through whatever hoops you need to jump through to make it right for the kids. But at the same time, we've got to get better at planning ahead because these things don't always have to be emergency.
Got it. Okay. Okay, so then we're at a little over $500,000 allocated.
So here's the question I would ask anybody in this situation. When did you know you were going to need this? When did you submit a requisition for it? Those are the questions that I like to ask people to try to get them to think ahead and plan for these things.
Okay. Okay. Proceed with the next set so that we can get to Ms. Garcia's question. So I will resume sharing. All right. The credit card, I saw is budgeted for $240,000. That's roughly $20,000 a month. The last time I saw the credit card, well, you recently sent me the file, thank you. But the one prior to that, I think June was $44K. This month we're $37K. So we're way above the $20,000 threshold. How do we?
Well, here's the problem we run into. It's again, take what I just said and just multiply that. So here's the call I get. Hey, we got to go downstate with these kids, increase the credit card limit so we can cover the hotel and the food. And at that point, am I going to say no? or am I going to say, you know what? You're out there with kids, you got to make this happen. And, hopefully you don't do this again next year. Because, a number of these things are, should be pre-planned in a better way. So, I mean, you can go through the credit card bill and look at it and say which of these could have been pre-planned versus which ones are true emergency. I think that's a good way to look at it.
Okay. And I just received this today, so I will have to go through and review it. But
Can you scroll right there? Go back.
keep on going up.
We want to see those southwest, like.
And then, of course, some things you can, these days, there's some things you can only purchase with a credit card. I mean, there's certain things you can't do with the PL. So, we'd have to sort through it using those parameters.
Okay,
I don't think you can do a PO in Southwest, for instance.
correct, yeah. All right, so yes, we've allocated 240,000 a year. We have to hit that 20K, either some way, shape or form. We have to hit that 20K a month or less than ideally. Because we can't have another year where we're 300 some odd thousand, 400 some odd thousand.
My solution is people that have a free plan, we can bring them to the meeting and they can explain.
I love it. I'm not against it. Okay. Let's see here. The ESSER grant is $12 million allocated to it. Is that what we have remaining? Sorry.
12 million, that would have been last year. We're certainly not expecting that going forward.
Okay, let me find it. ESSER. Here we go. We have, yes, roughly 12 million allocated to it. With two of the biggest ones being these two accounts here. Was it 9 million and 2 million?
One of the 9 million was for the FMP
Okay,
construction, and the rest of it are for a variety of educational programs.
okay. And again, I have to do my due diligence and link these accounts to, I believe I could link it to the vendors from the bill list, right?
Well, I can tell you the 9 million is Gilbane and Perkins and Will.
All right. Okay, and then 3.5 million allocated to transportation. I think in the last board meeting, we had asked about a copy of that agreement. Can we get a copy of that agreement with First Student? When can we get that copy?
Yes, we can get that to you. I'll try to send that this evening, Mr. Ocampo.
Okay, great, thank you. And then, nice to have, being able to group this by educational fund, transportation fund. I think that would be helpful. Year-end target balance, if I remember in a prior conversation with Dr. Panine, it was like 90% of expenses is our year-end target balance. Is that arbitrary, or why so high? Like, do we necessarily need to keep 90% of? Because looking at the 5-year plan, it looks pretty high, holding all the cash reserves, year-end balance. We could essentially allocate more money toward other programs, right? Instead of just keeping that much cash on hand, right?
Yeah, I think so. The state rates us based on our financial strength
Okay,
and stability. And one of the main factors they look at are your reserves. And the board has a policy of maintaining reserves at a minimum level.
yes,
And so, but that's a minimum. There are a lot of districts with much more extensive reserves than we have. But having said that, it's a balancing act between keeping enough to make sure that if there are any unforeseen financial challenges, that we're able to weather that, versus spending the money on students, making sure money gets to the students get served. It's a balancing act. It's really something that districts wrestle with. There's some districts that don't keep a lot of reserve. There's some districts that keep a lot more in reserve. It's really a function of the community and, you know, what policy and direction the board wants to take.
Yeah, I think it's worthwhile exploring, you know, if we had 75%, what would it look like at 75, at 70, et cetera? Just, you know, what if scenarios, right? Because again, I'm a proponent of utilizing that money for our students and making the district better instead of just holding on to it for a rainy day. Rainy days do occur, but yeah. All right, so that is my line of questioning for the budget. I promised Ms. Garcia for a minute or two to talk, otherwise we can, you know, we're running out of time, but. Okay. Okay, so that's the budget. The next piece is this PACE budget and proposed payment plan. Okay. It's my understanding that the good people at PACE have sent us a budget for the new school year, and it's broken out by monthly payments, right? Could we get a copy of that PACE budget? And by we, I mean the Board of Education, so I know how much is allocated per month. And then what is let me bring it up. Notes here. I have the average days it takes to pay. Let's see here. Takes to pay certain vendor. Let me bring up PACE. Spacing gets me. Okay. So it takes roughly almost 2 months to pay an invoice from when we receive it to when we pay it. The problem I have is that we know ahead of time what we need to pay, right? I understand you said in the prior board meeting that it's a case-by-case basis. And also you have to verify that the students are getting service. That's correct. How can we expedite this so that it's not every 2 months, but maybe a month or so? Like, can you walk me through the process of?
Well, let me just say this. It amazes me. This week, I received invoices from 2020 from some vendors. This issue of late payments is nothing new here. It's something that's been an issue. My understanding, at least what I've been told, is it's been an issue for a long time. Now, I will say that we had some challenges this past year. But we put structure in place that I don't anticipate this being an issue going forward. So I think overall, we've had some, obviously we've had new people, and getting up to speed on this takes a while. There are a lot of vendors involved, and the due diligence around making sure the services take place is daunting. It can be overwhelming. And so one of the things that's happened recently is we've given additional administrative help to the special ed department. Mm-hmm. And Dr. Williams has really gotten involved in taking hold of that to the point where I believe a structure is in place right now to make sure that I think we want to see those payment times go way down. Okay. Way down.
You're
what
saying
last year is not going to happen this year.
You're saying that the sped department is the bottleneck then in this, in the reason why PACE is behind in payments. Is that a fair assessment?
I wouldn't characterize it that way, but
well, there's a bottleneck somewhere.
I'm not going to argue with you.
There's a bottleneck somewhere because I'll bring the participants, the audience's attention to another issue. where we had like Joseph Academy, where it was almost an entire academic year where they didn't get their payment. Right? And we're seeing that here, like 286 days for Hope Learning Academy, 215 days for Joseph Academy, etc.
But did you see my email? Was that this morning, yesterday morning?
Oh, they got that check on the 11th.
The address, they closed the location,
Okay.
and we've been sending their payments to that location. And so the check came back in the mail.
When was that? Like throughout the year?
July 15th. I can actually show you. Should I pull it up? I mean, I can pull it up on the screen.
How often have you been sending the checks? Like throughout the year, or just that one time?
No, I'm not saying it was completely timely, but I am saying we made good faith attempts to pay it. And we can show you the checks that came back.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I'd like to see that because I was receiving
I'd
emails
love to
saying,
show you. Want to see it?
I'd love to see it. Because I've been receiving emails saying that they haven't received payment and they've been reaching out.
No, I don't want you to believe we're just not paying people. That's not the case.
So what I'm hearing then is moving forward in the year, PACE will be paid on a timely basis, right? Because
Yes, sir.
all right.
Absolutely. And what I'm also saying is, should it be better? Yes.
I understand.
But at
There's
the
room
same
for
time-
improvement. Always.
At the same time, I am saying that there's uniqueness to a lot of these situations. So let me just share this with you. So when we were notified, when we got word that when President Grant reached out to us about
Mhm.
Joseph Academy, we started researching it to figure out what's going on because our records show these things being paid. And as we researched it, we found out that the checks that we had sent to them got returned. You can see here, this check was returned to us, unable to deliver the thing on here. That one doesn't have the, this one says July 15th.
Okay. So that was the one attempt, right? Like,
Well, these are two separate checks. These two checks.
but the point I'm trying to make is that like throughout the year, they've been reaching out and contacting, but haven't had much traction, much response. That is the.
What I can tell you, our staff reached out to them and couldn't reach them.
Through this attempt that you're showing.
These are multiple attempts. This one came back the 15th of July. It's dates now.
The 16th, right there. Is that right? I think that, yeah, 07/16/23.
Yes. So these two represent, I'm gonna say almost, I don't wanna say, it's a few months. Not the whole year, but it's a few months. Right now, my understanding is there are only 2 or 3 outstanding invoices. Looks like a couple were missed at different points through the year, but this represents the bulk of what we owe them to the year.
Okay, so then we're in agreement that moving forward, we'll not allow, anything. Do we have a target, like within 45 days we pay it, within 30, can we get a target?
Our target is 30 days. So that's why we have a monthly bill list. We try to pay them within 30 days. I don't think we're gonna see this again this year. We've given additional support. There's additional oversight. I think we're in good shape.
So in this upcoming board meeting, we should see Ace's bill.
I think we paid Pace on a special because of the concerns with them being late. That we went ahead and paid them.
Mr. Moody, do you mind if I jump in for just a second? This is Vanessa Schmidt.
Yes.
I think what would be of real asset to your team, and this is something that I operated on in prior years, is that each facility receives a calendar of the board meetings and the absolute last date that the board receives invoices through Infinite Vision or receives payment. And then you basically let the districts know, or the facilities know, if you want to be on the bill list for this month to be paid, for approval to be paid, your invoice has to be posted by this date. Now, I always had them send the invoices electronically, and then it's just a matter of the special education department earmarking an hour or so every day for the first maybe 10, 12 calendar days in each month to process invoices. And the invoices take on average about 3 minutes per invoice.
I think that's a great idea. We'll definitely consider that.
Great.
Excellent. Okay, so then we discussed Ace. Let me resume sharing here. And so we reached out to Joseph Academy then to settle this.
We received an email back from them. They actually came and picked the checks up.
Okay. Good. All right, so then, so we discussed about payment terms for vendors. So our target is 30 days, right? We've established 30 days, which is great. We've also discussed about SPED. Look at, again, going back here. The red here is, these are our, what I'll call the top offenders, the vendors that haven't been paid for X amount of time. So I think we need to focus on this in the upcoming school year. I know we should focus on this, on getting this.
We've already focused on it. And we brought a lot of these current right at the end of the fiscal year. Or at the end of their fiscal year, and they're reaching out for funds.
Okay.
A lot of it's current.
It's current. Okay. We talked about the budget for athletics. Let's see here. Credit cards. We talked about the credit cards and the bill. The next one is payroll. So questions and initiating a discussion around the payroll audit. As we saw Ms. Garcia talk earlier, there's questions around the cadence of payments, right? And how often our colleagues and staff are being paid, but we know it's biweekly. But I would like to do a deep dive and start talking about how can we get information on the frequency of payments, who's getting paid, who's on the payroll. And payment history. So how do we initiate a payroll audit?
Well, let me just say that payroll is complicated and it can be confusing. And I know that, for instance, the payroll calendar, it's an effort on our part to share a lot of information in a small space, because we have a lot of different categories of employees.
Okay.
So we're trying to share about the 12-month employee. We're trying to share about the 10-month employee. We're trying to share about the hourly. We're trying to share a lot of information in a small space. I understand why the calendar can sometimes throw people off. Having said that, we have amazing resources here to explain these things. We've got a payroll specialist who knows the district inside out. Her door is always open. She's constantly on the phone explaining these things to people. So I just want you to know that there's a constant stream of people in and out that we're servicing and explaining, how the payroll works.
Who is the payroll specialist?
That's Miss Marsha Watson.
Okay.
And actually, I believe Miss Garcia spoke with Miss Watson
Yes, I did.
fairly extensively.
Can I piggyback on what you said? You said there's a lot of difficulties, as far as the payroll, that you have to pay a lot of different people, different positions. But when you come down to it at the end of the day, everybody is getting paid the same time every 2 weeks. Now, if you look at the calendar, go back to say 2019. Count the first pay period, the first paycheck you're supposed to get. And then circle each month. Count it. When you count it, that'll tell you if you have gotten the 25 or the 26. So when I went to Ms. Watson, she kept saying something about, well, here's the calendar. Here's the spreadsheet. Spreadsheet can be manipulated. You can tell me that the sky is orange when I can see the blue. Now, if I see that you're telling me there's 20-something pay periods in the year, it's on the spreadsheet. But when I do it for myself and I'm counting, it's not gonna lie. It's gonna tell me if it's either 26 or 25. I don't care what the spreadsheet say. It's just what it is what it is. And I don't understand why he's saying that different people get paid different times. You all get paid at the same time. The same every 2 weeks. What is the difficulty in understanding that and giving people the money that they're due?
Yeah.
Did you explain that to me? Or is it me?
No, I'm trying to understand as well. So, Mr. Booth, you said that there are several people that reach out to Ms. Watson regarding the calendar, the payment frequency?
Any manner of payroll issues, that a payroll frequency, Dr. Henderson spoke about it at the last board meeting. I spoke about it at a board meeting. It's just simple. People have difficulty wrapping their heads around it.
Yes.
Okay, so when I had that meeting with her, I had a 3:00 meeting with her to just understand what's going on. When she told me that they found some stuff that was incorrect, she took it to somebody because we worked, and she wanted them to know that, well, we're not going to get paid. But they're going to tell her. She said that the upper people said, well, don't pay them. It's just like Queen said, just let them, they're hungry, let them be cake. You know what I'm saying? That don't make sense.
I just have one question. I got off the phone with the village administrator, the village of Broadview, and she does payroll on a monthly basis. We do bi-weekly, 15th to the 30th. My question is, do we do payroll reconciliation? Because I know at Broadview, we submit our payroll to the IMRF, and then we get a double check, not only by our finance director, but then by the mayor of the village of Broadview. So how we do it is we have our payroll triple checked before we pay our people. That way we don't have any, when it comes to payroll auditing, it's very efficient. It doesn't take that long. So I just wanted to share that idea. I just got off the phone with her, Administrator Jones, if you want to reach out to her. She does a payroll like that.
Okay. I may take you up on that. Mr. Moody, do we perform payroll reconciliation?
We do.
Do you walk me through what that looks like? I know we're running down on time, but could you, in the 5 minutes or so, could you elaborate what
So we have a number of checks and balances that are built into the payroll system. We use a software that really calculates our payroll. It's the same software that's used by hundreds, if not thousands of districts across the country. So our payroll is processed through this Infinite Vision software. In addition to the software, you have us manually checking it. And then in addition to us manually checking it, we have the treasurer's office that's checking it. And the checks are actually cut by the treasurers. They don't cut it if it doesn't balance. So we go through a balancing process every payroll. If it's off by a penny, the treasurer's office is calling us on the phone like it's off. We're not printing these checks till we balance. So it's thoroughly reconciled and balanced, and not just by us, but by outside entities as well.
I recall sometime last year, there was an incident with direct deposit, right? Usually, do most of our staff, do they take advantage of direct deposit?
Most, but not enough. We'd certainly like to be 100% on direct deposit.
Because there was an incident where everyone was cut a check, right? Regardless if they were direct deposit. What happened there? Because if you're saying the treasurer's office handles that, what's the backstory
I
on
don't recall, I mean, you'd have to give me specifics, dates.
I can give you a specific date.
But direct deposit is, again, there are multiple entities involved. It could be something on the bank's end, it could be something on the treasury department's end, it could be something on our end. If the data doesn't get to the bank in time, you can't do direct deposit, then you have to cut paper checks. So it could have been some issue with the data not getting to the bank in time. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the payroll. It just means that the data didn't get to the bank in time.
Was that on the district?
I'd have to know the specifics.
We received an email recently that's saying September 15th, everybody's paycheck is going to be in a check form. I'm one of the persons who get direct deposit. So instead of me having my check deposited in my account, I'm going to have to go and take my check, a paper check to the bank. Now, if he says that it's a lot of circumstances that maybe they've done early enough, then what's the question now? You just answered your own question. For September the 15th, what is the reason why everybody's getting a paper check instead of people getting their check deposit and others for paper check? Why is that the case?
Mr. Moody, was that the discussion from the last board meeting? Why the
I
district?
think Dr. Henderson mentioned, he may have mentioned something about it, but if he did or didn't, one of the reasons for the paper check at the beginning of the year is that beginning of the school year, sometimes people don't show up. And don't show up for work. If you direct deposit a paycheck for them, then they get paid. And if they don't show up for work, then the district is just out that money. So
Makes sense.
one of the reasons we do paper checks at the beginning of the school year is to make sure that we're only paying people who actually showed up for work at the start of the school year.
Do we have a problem with ghost payroll or ghost employees?
It's not ghost payroll, but it is people taking advantage of weaknesses in the system. So by doing this, we prevent that.
Okay,
Dave, can I ask a question?
yes.
Can you or share what your understanding of how we reconcile when our employees get paid every year?
From what I understood in the discussion, so we have Infinite Vision as the software. Then we provide that data to the treasurer's office, which then cuts the checks or the direct deposits into the account. If there is a discrepancy, those checks don't get cut.
And not only the Treasury Department, we have to report to IRS, TRS, TRS, and the IMRF. And so we're reconciling constantly with all of these people.
So we entrust our visions to talks, but like we have nothing to do with this, so we put data into that software system. It goes straight to the treasurer and that's it. We have nothing else to do with it.
It sounds to me that that's what.
There's no more checking on our part.
Correct. Well, unless Miss Watson gets involved at that point.
She processes the payment.
Okay.
Their point person in terms of processing the payment.
I have a question.
Yes.
Can you pay if people are being punched in and punched out? How can you pay somebody that has not worked? If you have nothing on the books for that person, how are you gonna pay that person a check when there's nothing there?
And tell them
That doesn't make sense.
And accuse them of.
How you gonna, okay, if I say if I work 2 weeks, out of those 2 weeks, I just work 2 days. And my time sheet is gonna reflect the amount of work that I worked. So I just can't say that I will be happy as a lark if I work. I'm supposed to get paid for 2 weeks. I got paid for 2 weeks, and I only work two days. Something is wrong with the system. Something is off. That don't sound right. It don't make sense. So I like how he does his math. I'm gonna get paid for it, and I don't even have to work.
So, Mr. Moody, I think it would be best if we had, maybe at the next session, a better understanding of how the reconciliation happens. If Ms. Watson could walk us through. I see that she was invited to the meeting. So if she could walk us through at a later time how the reconciliation happens, but I would like to get started on like a payroll audit, get the ball rolling, yes.
I can give you that contact information.
Yes.
As well. And I'll call and tell it to look out for a call from tomorrow or whatever.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan, thank you.
Well, I forgot to mention, we're also audited by our external auditors, thank you to.
Baker telling us.
All of them, not all of them. Pretty taking place.
I won't be too arduous, I promise. All right, so I know we're at time. But the last one, outstanding question is district-wide supplies. So do we have any open orders with any vendors like Staples or Amazon, like pending supplies?
I'm sure we do. Pretty much all we have open up.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
I'm a swim coach. I just found out when I went to my meeting with Coach, with Mr. Davis and Mrs. Washington, that there was an order placed last year with a vendor to do our parkers and to do our bags. That vendor was never paid, and that vendor went out of their way to come and measure our girls, give them swimsuits, and they were never paid, according to Mr. Washington and Mr. Davis. So can we please find out where that bill went? Because that vendor could be very useful to me this year, but I'm not able to use them because we had a bad relationship, because they were never paid. So can we find out where that came, where that was about, since that's an open bill? Sorry about that, sir.
Open orders, yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. Well, so, yeah, any pending open orders, unfortunately, I don't have visibility to it, but like, the only visibility I have is what is on the bill list, what is presented to us. But if we could see, any outstanding orders, when I say open, outstanding orders, like in this example with the swimming coach, could we address that?
That's, when you say outstanding orders, so the visibility that I have would be people who entered requisition. If there are employees who have invoices, they have to forward them to us, it's not something we would be aware of. And that happens occasionally. So in order to get processed, there had to be teamwork. There had to be handoff between the vendor, whoever placed the order, and the business office. So, one of the things we've done to bring greater accountability to this process is we have created a mailbox for accounts payable, so that we can know exactly when invoices that have been sent to the business side.
Okay.
What we don't know is when the invoice may have been, sent to the school. You know, we have situations where sometimes vendors sit on invoice. And it seems crazy, but it happens on a regular basis.
So this particular situation with the swimming coach, walk me through what happened. So was there an invoice that was, like, on your end, you have no visibility, it all starts with you entering?
So I do know that the coach previous before me passed away in a car accident, a motorcycle accident, to be honest. And when he passed away, I did receive a phone call to come and step in at that time. But I told him I couldn't because I had a contract with Roosevelt Middle School in District 88. So I couldn't walk away from that. So when I did decide to come was this following last year. And when I walked into the program again, I ended up purchasing uniforms because we didn't have enough uniforms for the girls. But I had the meeting with Davis and Washington last week when they called all the coaches after they let us know who was hired. That's when I found out that we had an outstanding bill with the company that came out and actually sized the girls, did the Parkers, did the bags, had our names put on there and everything, and we just can't call that company again because they were never paid.
Do you have a copy of that invoice?
I do not have one, but I can definitely talk to Davis and Miss Washington and find out who that company is so we can get them paid.
Yeah, then what that invoice to accounts receivable, right? Was that's accounts payable?
I don't know why he didn't want.
And then we'll start the process, right, for cutting a check? Okay.
And like Mr. Connor, we were talking, can we put out some kind of chain of command if teachers need supplies, requisitions? Who do we get in touch with? What administrators, instead of teachers coming and coaches coming to meetings to ask for the money, is there a chain of command that we can follow to streamline things and make things easier?
Sounds like my understanding it would be your principal, right? You go to your principal and then the principal would then go to the superintendent? Is it? No.
Well, principals have their own budgets. So principal in most cases would not need to go to the superintendent.
Okay. So
The
then
athletic to be the athletic director, I would do.
is that for athletics, the athletic director?
Yes.
And I don't know what the procedures were like if there was someone that had that position that was not, or FMLA out for any reason. Like, how do we inform people of the process in that person's absence? I think that may have been a hiccup that happened, but if that wasn't clear, then things like that would fall to the system.
Yes, in instances where like the athletic director was out, right, on medical leave, what happens there? I know you probably can't answer that, but.
Well, ultimately, the principal manages that building.
Okay.
So, regardless of, you can always go to the principal.
Okay, the principal, okay. All right, any, any other questions? Let me see the chat. Chats were on. All right, anyone on the call have any final comments they'd like to share? Once, twice. All right. Well, that concludes this month's meeting. Thank you very much for your attendance and your participation. I wish you all a good night.